I did my signing.
With Rose, you did?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll reconvene out of closed session. Open session is here, and Mark, will you give us a report, please?
Yeah. We had 4 items we discussed in closed session. There was a unanimous agreement on all the 3 items that we had to come to agreement on. The other one was my eval, which we're going to have at our next meeting.
Okay. And, Chris, would you mind leading us in the flag salute?
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think everybody knows we have Becker Grove graduation ceremony tonight at 6, so that's the reason for starting a little early, and hopefully we can get through the agenda fairly quickly. We have 3 retirees.
I think we only have one here. I don't see Lisa. I don't. Well, I'm glad.
Enjoy the game.
I haven't cried yet.
Well, Miss Allen, would you like to come up, please?
Okay.
She's a hard worker. Kids love her. I've sat in her classroom watching Daily 5, and she's engaged. The kids are engaged. She's still getting out at the top of her game. So I'm hoping in January she thinks about subbing, coming back, helping us out.
Valley.
Can we pay mileage? But she's done a great job for Willits Unified, and we're really pleased that you stuck it out with us and did a great job
It's
for
been
kids.
a pleasure.
Yeah, it's amazing when you get to see the kids, how big they get. And,
Yeah, when the high schoolers came today, it's like, wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have some of them?
I didn't recognize anyone,
Okay.
but I knew some of them.
All right. Well, we want to give you a certificate.
Okay,
This is also a lifetime pass to any activity at our school.
okay.
And you're always welcome, even though it's a drive now.
My dentist is here.
Well, I'm jealous because every day is going to be a Saturday pretty soon for you. But it's been a great opportunity to work with you. I'm really pleased.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm just going to mention a couple others. Lisa Kohler's not here. Lisa retired in January. And we invited her to come, did a great job as a secretary at Brookside, and trained her trainees, and things are going well at Brookside because she helped get it put in place. So, very pleased. We'll catch up with her and get this. Now, the other one's mine out at Sherwood, but Gina Hurst is retiring. Gina is our 3-5 teacher. Probably she couldn't take one more retirement thing because yesterday out at Sherwood we had our promotion ceremony and there was a boatload of crying and things going on. Gina's been there a long time, done a great job. And what's really cool is she actually lives out by the school. Gina is my call in the morning at 6 o'clock. Can you drive out to the school, see what it's like? Is it snowy? Is it muddy? What's going on? But yeah, Gina's done a great job out at Sherwood, and kids love her. And it's a great gig, but it's also a tough gig when you're a 3-5 teacher, multi-age. And she has done a wonderful job with it. And Sherwood's a unique environment, and a lot of that's due to her. So I appreciate what she's done, and we're going to miss her. But we got a great replacement coming, so that I'm happy about. All right.
And we have a school board student representative.
I don't see
I don't see
him,
Drake.
Okay.
but we have a platform.
Well, hi, Drake. Sorry you're not here. We'll move on. A staffing report.
So I have a quick update. I'll start with coaches. We have 25 coaches hired for Willits High School as of right now. Last year, we processed 69, including volunteers, so I anticipate a whole lot more of them coming soon. We had 3 retirements this year, 15 resignations, 5 of which were received in late May. 3 relocated, 3 career change, 1 medical, 1 accepted work closer to home, 6 mutually agreed upon, and 1 assignment preference. They wanted to work with high school kids and they had an elementary assignment. We had 1 non-reelect, 5 transfers, and 3 voluntary assignment changes. So what that leaves us with is 13 new hires, which are all in various stages of getting their paperwork done. I anticipate 5 more with 4 openings and 1 long-term replacement post tomorrow, since you approved a Willie Brown in closed session. I just now posted that 3rd grade position, and I anticipate an in-house transfer for that. Bechtel Grove, Blosser Lane, and Sherwood are fully staffed. The high school has 1 vacancy, and we have interviews scheduled for the 8th, the 12th, and the 13th. Blosser Lane has 1 anticipated vacancy from the 3rd grade today, so I don't have interviews set for that yet. Brookside has 2 vacancies, both were late resignations, and the interviews, 1 is taking place right now and 1 is taking place tomorrow. And then we also have a school nurse that's vacant. We have 4 summer programs that are also fully staffed, with 6 classified and 12 certificated. Willits High School has a credit recovery program. Bechtel Grove has a middle school summer growth program. Willits High School is offering biology and algebra academy, and then we have extended session for people, the students with IEPs. It's included in their IEP.
Is a vacancy at the high school in science,
It is not.
music?
Social studies.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Laura, I just want to extend my appreciation to you for what you do for this district. You just work extremely hard, you do an outstanding job, and I've worked with several HR directors, and you outshine all of them.
Well, I have.
So
proud. Thank you.
A
I
lot
work
of hard
with
work.
this, thank you and Mark for supporting our early recruitment efforts, because we started in December, which is unheard of. And as of May 20th, we were fully staffed. And then, that next week happened. So, it's a kind of a moving target. But the admin has been super flexible about doing night interviews and weekend interviews and Skype interviews. And we work around the candidate schedule. We're not working around our schedule anymore. It's really competitive out there, so getting out there early and being flexible with the candidates is really helpful. So,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Do we have any positions that are not fully credentialed for next year?
No, not yet. We're not there yet. Those kinds of decisions typically take place in July and August,
Okay.
when we're up
Yeah.
against a wall.
We have no intention of hiring non-credentials. That would be a unique situation if we couldn't find anybody who had the certification. We do have, we've really worked hard to make sure that doesn't happen. In fact, you'll see it on our LCAP. It's 2 years in a row where 100% of our staff are fully qualified. Laura's done a good job because she puts up with a lot of crazy ideas from me. How about if we do this, move that?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Have a good summer. Does anybody want garden party tickets or summer gala? I have them at the district office if you would like some.
Mental health facility update.
Well, Dr. Matheson, would you like to step up to the plate?
No, I've given you all that I know.
He and I have been frequently some of the same meetings. I usually sit in the back because he must get there before I do all the time. But we're sitting in and listening to the debate over facility, where it's going to be. He's given us a ton of information. I gave all you guys that information to look at. One of the projected places would be the Howard Hospital here in the center of town. I do know, are there 2 other locations they're also looking at?
No other locations yet, but we were suggesting a few.
Right. At some of the meetings, there's rumblings about a couple other locations that they've been talking about. And so neither one of those are in Willits. Both of them are in the Ukiah area. But it's something we as a school need to be pretty focused on about. Our biggest issues obviously are going to be what's the security plan if it were there? What happens if there's a breach in security? And I'm concerned about what's their release plan. You know, I hope it's not, hey, Nikki, I think you're okay. See you later. You know, so those are the things that we need to do. Unfortunately, the real control of it is going to be through the county supervisors. It's not going to be through the city or obviously not the school.
I would think the city should have a voice in this.
You want to respond to that?
The city wants a voice.
Yeah.
The question is, they may not have a voice because if the county owns it, the county is exempt apparently from city ordinances by some law. Although the city attorney says there's another law, especially for psychiatric facilities, that says if a psychiatric facility in the city does have a say. So the law is unclear.
And it's the county's money. It gets generated, goes through the county supervisors. So there's no, if the city were involved in some financial aspect, they would have more of a handle. But I've been at the meetings where they've been asking to be part of the discussion. At this point, they're still really waiting for, I don't remember the time frame when they were going to finish their survey of needs.
Hopefully by September.
Yeah. And they've hired a company to go out and do a survey of needs, survey the facilities. Can they get the employment they need to even run the facility? If they get the employment, is there any place for them to live? How much is it going to cost to run? They have to know about some operational costs. I think like most decisions, it's going to come down to a financial decision. Which one of those 3 facilities or building a new facility makes the most financial sense. You know, my guess is if it costs 2 or 3 times more to build a new facility than it does to renovate one of those, they're probably going to renovate one of those. I mean, is that your assessment?
Yes, there is what we're proposing is a PUF unit and a rehab unit, 32 beds. There is a cheaper option, and that's a crisis stabilization unit and a residential unit attached to it. And that's been proposed in Ukiah. They tried to get a grant for it last year and failed. It's only a $4.8 million cost, and which is remodeling the Howard Hospital is to be a $15 million cost. And that's going to, and the unit in Ukiah would be smaller and more likely to be staffed.
Right.
We had to close our PUF unit 19 years ago because we couldn't staff it. And not much has changed, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the other question, well, I've never heard of what a new facility would cost. Have they ever put that number out there?
I haven't seen that number.
Yeah. I've just heard from some of the people that and it's all he said, she said, they're not sure, they said it in some meeting, but not in a public meeting or whatever, but that the cost of the facility is double if they don't renovate. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know much about building hospital facilities, so if it were a school facility, I'd be able to have some reference source, but I really don't. But we need to be aware of it, certainly. It sits in the middle of town by a small school, by Bechtel, by the charter school. It's right in the center of town. So.
But through this initiative, they've never once addressed the staffing, have they? I mean, put it all together as one package. It seems like since its inception, it's just been about the facility, and there's been a lot of rumblings about how we're going to staff.
They've set aside $1.7 million for staffing.
Oh, okay.
That's the tip of the iceberg.
But yeah, exactly.
Is that 1.7 million a year? or
A
is that-
year,
Okay.
a year.
Huh.
What is the average length of stay in this type of facility?
You, well, it's 72 hours is, after 72 hours, the patient's released unless the court decides they are committed to stay longer. And then you can keep them there for 14 days after that. And then you can go back to the court and keep them for 30 days after that.
So it's short term.
So three days is the usual.
Thank you.
But they can voluntarily submit to longer as well.
You do have a longer program?
Yeah,
It would be a
well,
longer stay program?
Oftentimes, they're transferred to acute care hospitals elsewhere or to a residential care center.
Right. Okay.
That's how the crisis unit would work. The crisis unit has to, within 23 hours, decide what to do with the patient. But if there's a residential site next door to it, they can transfer to the residential care center for 30 days. There's a maze of government regulations that make it very hard, I think, to deliver good care.
And I don't think there's any dispute at all about that we need a facility like that available for folks in our area.
Exactly.
I don't think there's any dispute at all because the police are saddled with this issue all the time with having, I mean, the hospital is kind of the makeshift place. The jail is the makeshift place right now. And so I don't think there's any dispute we need a facility. The community have voted overwhelmingly for a tax to do the facilities. And so it's going to be here somewhere. The question is where. But he's giving you a lot of great
That's
information.
wonderful, yeah, appreciate
And-
that.
Yeah, I have been attending the meetings and I basically sit back and listen. I'm not up front making a discussion because it's kind of out of my area. I'm more concerned about how it impacts the school than I am the mental health aspect of it because that's kind of out of my league.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that if they do end up selecting Howard Hospital and they address the security issues, release issues, those things that we would be concerned with, I welcome the idea that they utilize that facility, personally. I think it may bring more jobs, professional jobs, more enrollment in our local schools. I think it's an improvement of our own local economy, assuming it's run well. So I would certainly welcome it.
Again, I'm kind of the go-between information. I've been trying to feed you information, and it seems to me like the process is moving really, really slow.
Yes.
That the commissioners are not, or not commissioners, supervisors are kind of somewhat dragging their feet a little bit and requiring more out of the committee. And they're doing a very extensive research of what it would look like, what to use, how to staff it, and all those things.
The Measure B committee doesn't have staff, and that slows it down tremendously, I think.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what the time frame is. I've never seen a timeline about, by this date, we need to have a choice made of what we're gonna do. I've never seen a timeline, have you?
No. I do know, though, that if they decide to go with Howard Hospital, it's 2 years from the time of the decision to the time they think they will open it up. And the crisis unit is 1 year from the time that the decision to open it up.
I've never been in the old hospital, so I have no idea what the structure's like. But,
It's an old hospital.
It's been there a long time.
but I want to say, I appreciate you going and getting me informed, because I had heard just a few little scuttlebutts around town about that, and I actually went over and asked Laura, hey Laura, did you hear about, what are you talking about? And I said, well, that's what I think is going on. And so then I got information from him. He came in to see me, and originally I assumed that we were going to have like mental health facilities where, open to the public kind of thing, and I didn't realize it was going to be the type of structure they were talking about. And so, for what I voted for to what's happening are probably two different things.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm not an expert in the area, but I think the folks who are need to make that decision about what we need to have for a facility.
Well, I think ironically, it was moving along, you were saying slow, it was moving pretty clip-paced when we got information of what they were thinking about for the hospital. And I think once that came up, that slowed things down for you to get some information, get
Yeah.
well-informed people.
Yeah, there are certainly a lot more people at every meeting compared to
Oh.
the first one I went to.
Nice. Mhm.
So, okay. Well, thank you, I appreciate your help.
Yeah. Well, thank you for reading my materials.
You got it.
I'm going to be visiting one in Humboldt in the next week.
Okay.
I guess I understand it's pretty easy to get admitted. All you have to do is lie down in the middle of the street.
There you go.
Use the movement.
What kind of unit is it there? Is
It's
that
a puff unit.
a pup unit?
With a crisis center next to it. And it's a lot of controversy about all these units,
Right.
because we have a lot of helpless citizens.
Mhm.
And you bring the jail, you bring the emergency room, you bring the puff unit, and you still have helpless citizens
Yes.
2 days later.
Mhm. Exactly.
Now, there's a facility in Nevada as well, I don't know if you're aware.
It isn't a puff unit, it's a private hospital, I believe.
Yeah, that is often it's long-term care for a lot of those people.
And we have a 16-bed long-term care facility here in Willits, Redwood Creek, which has severely mentally ill patients who are stable on their medications.
Is that there on Marine Street? Is it
That's on Main Street, yeah,
on Main Street?
yeah.
By
Redwood Manor, next to the old.
Steele's
Chris-
Oh, okay.
place?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
We are down to WTA comments.
I never know where anything is because you always ask, oh, it's the old whatever store. And
Yeah.
Do we have anybody here on behalf of WTA tonight?
I don't think so. Sorry, you're out.
You gotta bring it up.
Moving on, CSEA. Dan?
Good evening, everyone. Dan with CSEA. Got a few items to talk about here. Throughout the year this year, we had a pretty good year. We had our share of personal issues like everybody else, but we were able to resolve those within the admin process and work them out. We sponsored 2 Willits High School seniors this year to go to their senior field trip. They were, for whatever reasons, unable to supply the funds to do that, so we did that as a group, which worked out nice. And then for Classified Week, we did something a little different this year. We decided that we're going to try to use our facilities and our people in the district to accomplish what we wanted. So we ended up hiring Jesse Reese's special day class, the Sue James CLC class, and they came up with a package of, they made us stress balls, they made cookies, they made muffins. Mrs. Watkins' 4th grade class made origami cranes for us, and so we had people make bags and we passed out lunches, and Sue James's class delivered everything to all the sites because they visit all the sites doing recycling and other projects, so they volunteered to do the delivery for us. So that went over really well, and so in the end, we'd like to thank Sue James and her aides, Jackie and Becky, the students, Daniel, Hannah, Brenda, Jacob, Manuel, River, Samuel, Jenna, and Sue Young. And then we had Jessie Reese's class, her aides, Adrian, Kathleen, Caitlin, and then her students, Martin, Jeffrey, Kimberly, Ray, Dakota, Randy, and Elias, and Hannah. They did all the baking and things like that, putting everything together in bags for us. And then Mrs. Watkins' class, I can't name all the kids, but that worked out good. So in lieu of all the work they did for us, we gave them root beer float and orange float parties. And so we went to the classrooms and gave them all that. And we made a donation to Sue James's CLC class of $150 to help them go on their trip to San Francisco for all the labor they did for us. So, in all, it worked out really good. I don't think we missed anybody. We missed a couple at Brookside, but we got them the next day because we had the ovens over here going, making stuff fresh for us. So it was really good, and I think they all had a really good time doing it, and it gave everybody something to do, and it was pretty productive. And other than that, I think that's all we have, and hope everybody has a good summer, and we'll see everybody back next year.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you, Dan.
And, Mark?
I'm going to run through some departments. Transportation gets an all-star A for the year. They've been down a driver all year long. They've had other drivers who've been injured, and we've been doubling routes. We have drivers drop kids off, go over and pick up another set, take them. They've been killing it this year. The good news is Jenna is going to become a trainer over the summer. She goes to Sacramento to a class, and she'll become our trainer. So when we get somebody, she can actually go through the entire training process with them. So we can get our own bus driver certified, because right now we're relying on Ukiah's trainer to do that. We pay to do that, and we're subject to when they're available. Well, every single district in Mendocino County needs bus drivers. So you can imagine how busy that trainer is. She can pretty much stop driving bus and just do training. So I feel good about that. I think we got a good plan. The drivers also have figured out next year how we're going to run 2 K5 buses, 2 612 buses. Sherwood will have its own run, but we're going to bus middle school, high school together, and K5s together. That'll just work better for everybody. The drivers are really happy about it because you get accommodated to the type of students you have with you. So that'll be a nice thing. In food service, we're looking at things. The grand jury report that'll be coming out is all about food service in the county. They did a big research project on how we're funded, how we're not funded, what our problems are, things we can do. So that's one of Nikki and I's focus is we're like most districts where we spend a lot of money additionally in food service than what we get reimbursed. We're around $230-some thousand or more out of general fund has to go into food service to keep it going. And there are no simple fixes. We'll just close the high school campus. It's not going to fix our food service issues, okay? Because we'll have to have more staff and pay for food on top of that. So it's not all just revenue. So you really have to look at it very strategically about what we can do to help our food service costs. The maintenance guys, this is a rough time of year for them. Everybody wants something fixed yesterday. I think they're looking forward to the summer. We're really struggling at Brookside on our classroom roof. I don't even know, how many times have we been on that roof at Brookside?
Which one?
Room 12. It had water come in on it. We ran a sprinkler up there for 3 days, didn't get a drop. We had a misty rain one night, and they had water come into the room. It's crazy. I mean, I have no idea where the water is, but that's one of those summer projects we have to try and figure out. But there's a ton of things on the summer project for them to do. It's just a non-stop issue to maintain the facility. Couple things with teachers and staff. We have a big training for our K-5 teachers. It's actually next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's all the people who weren't able to come to that rewiring that Trish Martin did with them. The rest of the teachers are now going to have that available to them. That will be a huge difference for us. It'll help our kids. You saw at our session at Brookside how valuable that is to teach those kids those reading skills. And so that's coming to that. Secondary, we have in-services plan. We have a gender equity in-service coming up in August. It was part of an OCR concern we had that we've taken care of. And we have a group from San Francisco called Gender Spectrum coming in to do that for us. It's becoming more and more of an issue. I'll illuminate some data from those when we talk about LCAP, but there's some really good positive data coming out from our schools right now. And so I'm really pleased about that. But we're making good progress. Lots of events. If you keep up with our Facebook page, there's stuff getting on there constantly. So I think we're in pretty good shape.
Thank you. Now we can roll back and catch WTA comments.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the computers were down at school this afternoon, and when I called the district office, they said 4:30. So anyway, that's why I'm late. Anyway, you know the healthcare issue is a huge issue, and I don't know if you talked about it yet, but
They know about it.
yeah, that 18% increase is going to be devastating, not just for WTA, but CSEA and everyone else. So, you know, we've had some discussions and try to look at alternatives and see what's out there, because new teachers are going to be hit really hard with that. So anyway, that's one issue. And we're looking forward to the end of the school year, and have a good summer.
Is congratulations in order that you're in a runoff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank
Way to
you.
go.
Yeah, you did a nice job. You ran a nice campaign. So.
I appreciate that.
In regards to healthcare, on Friday, we're having a teacher and CSEA and admins, everybody who has insurance, we're doing a meeting Friday morning. And I'm going to start off with kind of explaining to them what Staywell is. You know, Staywell's not some giant entity sitting out there, some corporation. It's us forming together with other schools. And the increase that we're going to get, you know, to stop that from snowballing, there are things we can do as people who have the insurance to kind of hold that back. Health insurance, like car insurance, if you use it all the time, your rates are going to go up. That's kind of what happened to us. Our claims experience for our group went up dramatically. They had to use their reserve. They have to put money back into the system. So they raised the rates. And they raised it on myself and John and Dan. Everybody in the district who has the insurance has that issue. And so the pain is shared by everybody. You know, I'm most concerned about my CSEA folks who work 6-7 hours because it went up so much. Some of them have talked to me about, hey, can I drop back an hour because I might save money by dropping back an hour and not having insurance. That's the opposite of what we want. We want folks who are vested and have insurance. Even though it costs more money, we know we like when people have insurance. They're better vested employees. But it's going to be hard. It's we got to pull it back together or search for another option. But it's like searching for another option when you have a lot of points on your license. You know, they're going to look at our claims experience and go, sorry, or it's more than what you're paying now. So we have to try and see if we can fix that a little bit. So.
Okay. Board comments. We'll start with Chris.
First of all, I just have a question. We have another board meeting this month, I assume? 13th? Is that, okay. And I want to commend the superintendent on his efforts in the area of adult education. I think that's a big addition to our district in terms of the service. I'm very happy with it. Other than that, I'm looking forward to graduation tonight and tomorrow.
I'll parrot Chris's comments and move on to.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me this position, and I feel like I'm on the team again, so thank you very much. Also, I did get a chance to go to Sherwood's graduation, and or promotion, I should say, not graduation. And the kids, they're just marvelous, and it's so wonderful to see what they do, but also it's the teachers and the time and dedication that they've put in. Many of our teachers have dedicated their lives, not just teachers, educators, all the support staff, they dedicate their lives to our children, and they work hard. Unless you walk a mile in those shoes, you really don't know how hard they work. And as they come to retirement and they reflect on what they've done a really good work, and I really want to extend my appreciation to all the educators out there that are in the trenches and doing the work. It's a noble cause.
Thank you. And I'd just like to back on everyone else. I think that's wonderful what Robert just said about our teachers. And I wish everybody a good summer and a nice break and get rejuiced and come back strong.
Okay. Let's see, are there any public comments on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
There's one item I'd like to pull off, that's number 5, acknowledgement of third quarter Williams review report from county office. Let's just talk about that separately.
Okay. Once again, a motion to approve with the exception of item number 5.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chris?
Yeah, we received a letter from the county office.
I'm sorry, Chris, did you vote on that?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. So now back to item number 5.
We received a letter from the county office regarding our Williams review report from MCOE, and you know, it was fairly insignificant, although I see it more as sort of like a drive-by, you know, where you get this letter and, you know, there's characterizations between good and fair, and to the extent that this report has any significance at all, and you know, if it's required by law, we ought to treat it seriously. I've been disappointed that we've never seen anybody from the county office except when we had their financial assistant come and try and sit at our table and make policy decisions. But I've not seen anybody from the county office here on anything else in the whole 5 years. And I would like, we elected a new county superintendent last night, and I would think that the county superintendent ought to show up at least once a year at every school board meeting, every district in the county. I mean, but as far as I can tell, the county superintendent never appears at any district meetings. And so I don't know quite how to accomplish it. Maybe I don't know whether I'll just invite her myself, but certainly with regard to this report, I would like to be able to ask somebody some questions. When you say fair, you know, why? When you say good, why? And but you know, we just get this report. It's like a formality. So if you talk to the superintendent, Mark, I appreciate that. Mention that she might be able to get off on a better start if she gets around a little bit. I mean,
I can make that happen.
Okay. That's all.
I just want to chime in, and these guys have heard this from me ad nauseum about Williams. You know, my biggest issue with Williams is really simple. You fund us on ADA, but you make us get everything. Okay, we have whatever the difference is between 100% attendance and ADA, we have a 6 or 8% unfunded mandate every year because of Williams. They count how many books we have, but don't help us make sure we get kids to school with things like SAR. That's my issue, is that we're very concerned about checking dots on Williams reports instead of kids being at school. And, you know, we're funded on ADA, which I think is in my words, is a classic class lawsuit. I mean, you have to make us fund on enrollment. We have staff on enrollment. We buy textbooks, computers, and everything based on enrollment, but you're only going to pay us for who showed up on those days. which is, to
Makes
me,
no
is,
sense.
yeah,
Just
well,
makes no sense.
yeah, it's,
We still need a motion to,
I'll move to acknowledge the receipt of this report.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And move forward. So we are at item number C, I believe. Approval of resolution, curriculum adoption, middle school math and ready math, curriculum associates.
the teachers did a great job of putting together options and, most importantly, policy and practice. How do you stay into accelerated math? How do you get into accelerated math? What's our retention policy? All of those things got done and put into place. So Maria and Mackenzie spent time with their staff to really not just do curriculum. We did curriculum because there's lots of Common Core materials out there. We picked a really good one. But just curriculum alone isn't the answer. We have to have policy and practice, accountability for students, teachers, and parents. And that's in place. On top of that, we have some really good professional development going to come not only from the vendor, but the middle school administration has put together with the county. And I'm going to sound like Chris when I say this, one of the few times I think the county has really come in and done something of significance for us that I can remember, is that they're coming in and helping us with math, because instruction is the issue. There's tons of curriculum, the Common Core is we know what it is. We know what the test is going to look like. It's the in-between instruction that's the issue. And so that's something we're really focusing on. This math series focuses more on teacher direct instruction, not just group work oriented. It also has a tangible book that the student can take home with them. The teacher can assign it, take it home with them, bring it back. The parent group was very supportive of the choice and liked the materials. So what we did was we met as a group with Alex and parents and teachers. They kind of gave us the roadmap. Here's what we like, here's what we don't like, put together a program. So we did that and then brought back the parents last Monday and talked about this is what we have. And they were very pleased. And we're looking forward to, the teachers want to get it in their hands soon. So in June, we're going to try and do an in-service with them June 18th on the new math product, so they don't have to wait till August to get their new materials. Because teachers generally over the summer start looking at what's going on for next year, and we'll have that available for them. Not only just in-service, but their materials as well. I miss anything, Maria?
Just that the in-service from the county is a coaching situation that goes on and follows throughout the year.
And that is the function of the county, is it not?
One of them.
One of their functions that they
And-
provide for us?
And a really important thing to understand about middle school math is that a lot of times it's done by core teachers. So they're not math, they're doing math and science. And that's a place where we have turnover or change. And so we have to have a curriculum that if Alex is the new teacher, we have a curriculum that we can give him and say, here's where you start and here's where you go. Even next year, we'll probably have 2 different people in the middle school math. So we have to have a curriculum that is usable, that is tangible for the teacher to take it and run. And we found that. And I think we'll do well with it.
Did they also work on a intervention or RTI component of the program?
Yes, in the program itself, there's a lot of remediation. There's also an online program called iReady that the teachers can use as an assessment. And if the student's being unsuccessful, they can go right to that. It also gives a teacher alternative assessments and in deeper stuff. It has enrichments and remediation built in.
But you're constantly monitoring, so it doesn't get 3 weeks out, we figure
That's the key.
something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and, the key is always the same, it's student and teacher engagement.
Engagement, yeah.
I think this will help that process and make it better.
Entertain a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
I'll second it.
And second, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Moving on to approval of resolution, basically number 20, curriculum adoption, English language arts. Another Houghton Mifflin from Harcourt.
Yep. Houghton Mifflin's language arts series is what we use already in the high school 9 through 12. So this is bringing a product that's a 6-12 product into our system. So we're connecting middle school language arts to high school language arts. Same type of material, same sequence of things. It should be a much better connection. One of our problems in language arts is that we don't have a, if you will, a script and a course. Our language arts teachers, and I'd say this even if Mackenzie wasn't here, Mackenzie was a really good language arts teacher, but she generated most of her materials on her own. Well, you can't replicate that with somebody else. Even if you give them your stuff, it doesn't necessarily click with them. And so this is going to connect 6-12. One of the values of our busing, by the way, is we're going to connect Tuesday better so middle school and high school can actually do some collaboration. One of my goals for next year, and I know Maria's and Mike's, are to get our departments closer together, middle school, high school.
Nice.
And this will help the language arts department. In fact, one of our high school language arts teachers could be a trainer of it. She's really strong in the program. So we're looking forward to that. And I think probably most of all, if we have changeover in middle school language arts, we have a program in place where they're not starting from scratch. All good teachers add to the curriculum resources they get from Houghton Mifflin. Everybody does. But this gives them a base to start with in a common language and a common process. So.
That's great.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And passes unanimously. Item E, approval of declaration of need for fully qualified educators and annual statement of need. This is an annual.
Yeah. This is an annual statement we put out about looking for highly qualified people who meet standard, and every year we adopt this motion. It's one of the things we use to look for highly qualified people. Unfortunately, in today's market, looking for teachers, we're ending up using other parts of highly qualified, which are PIPs and STIPs, and they got all these acronyms but it is most prevalent in special ed because special ed is not just an endorsement. There are multiple endorsements within special ed that you have to try and find. And so one of the things that we've been doing is really looking hard at getting people to fill special ed spots. It's hard enough, but then special ed becomes more problematic because it's elementary, it's mod severe compared to another area. It really becomes difficult. So when you see that we have people who are on those types of programs, usually it's based on we're not finding folks. The other issue with that is everybody who's on those is on a course and a calendar with Laura. One of or two of our issues with some of the folks not returning is they needed to stay on course to get their credential and be fully ready to go by July 1, and they weren't going to be able to do that. And so that's...
Yeah, this is a tool, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a tool that allows us to place someone that is not fully credentialed.
It does. It does.
At times of need.
In times of need. And the only reason I bring that up about credentialing is one of our places we're looking will be in special ed, in Ahmad Sabir, that I think we're gonna struggle to find qualified people.
Entertain a motion?
Comment.
I just have a
Pardon me?
couple of clarifying questions. So here where it says that you're looking for an emergency permit, okay, that's talking about people already credentialed, but they don't have a specification like the CLAD or whatever is necessary. I mean, it says one needs bilingual authorization, so I would imagine you're needing someone that probably speaks Spanish and has that on their credential and doesn't, their credential is regular and doesn't have that little certificate added. And then the 6 above it, I would imagine, when they say CLAD English learners, usually kids getting out of the universities now have to have those CLAD classes. So what I'm not understanding is, and a few years back, everybody was already okayed for all of that. Some people moved to other districts because they didn't get their CLAD on time, okay? So when this says this, I guess I'm most confused because I thought Laura said that at this moment, everybody was properly credentialed
They are.
where they belong. Okay, and so then these guys, these numbers are for people who are not yet a part of the district, but you anticipate will need to be, or they are members of the district employees already, but they just need those little fixes.
So usually I would say on the CLAS, I think
Uh-huh.
typically the ones that we see needing a permit until they can get their requirements met are usually people who come from out of state because their credentialing is different when they're out
Right.
of state. Because you're right, I think most of them who graduate now, that's built in,
It's
it's
part
not
of
an
it, yeah.
additional piece.
But so what I'm asking is, they're not yet hired, is that it? This is an anticipatory SACE?
I thought that it was
6?
anticipated for 18-19 or potential, but I don't know. Do you know?
Okay, well, so that's sort of what I'm asking. So you don't know that they're hired or not hired, or you,
I personally don't know.
No, I'm gonna have to ask Laura, because I didn't do that part of it. What I do know is that we run into this with out-of-states, and we run into it with people who have gone back to get they had their endorsement at one time a while ago, and been in business or industry, and then want to come back.
to teach it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
we've run into it a couple times in that fashion. But again, we just as soon hire somebody who didn't have any issues, because it makes it a lot easier for us.
And then on the flip side, it talked about a limited assignment permit, which applies to substitutes, okay, so that they can work for 30 days,
Right.
even though they don't have the proper credentialing. And so this would be an additional 6 to the 6 in front, right? Or are you sort of, see, my
I believe they're
confusion
getting them
is-
both at the same time.
Okay, making it 12 or leaving it at 6?
No, it leaves it at 6.
Okay, you just anticipate that you'll need in multiple subjects and
Right.
single subjects and special ed, probably a couple substitutes apiece to work long
That one
term.
I know that Laura kind of protects herself by having that in early on, because it takes the state a little while to get their paperwork organized and in. So she covers us for the first 6 weeks by doing that as well.
Okay, and then lastly, this doesn't apply to any administrative positions, right?
No.
Are those all fixed by now?
Yep. Yep. Everybody is in a program or
Or
completing.
credentialed? Oh, okay, did the district decide to do anything over 2 years for administrators finishing their credentialing for the position of an administrator? Longer than 2 years?
Not that I'm aware of. But we have, both Mike and Marion at the high school are fully certified now. They finished their programs.
Oh, okay,
And
that's good.
Mackenzie's in a program.
Uh-huh.
So, but Mike and Marion are all done. They have their administrative credential and their masters.
Good, and then the Blosser Lane did the same?
Yeah, she's already finished her program and she's in a,
It's a,
BITSA or something. It's a mentoring thing.
Yeah.
After you get your administrative credential, you still have a 2-year mentoring thing that goes on. So Nancy's in her 2nd year of that, and Mike and Marion will start their 1st year of it coming up.
Oh, okay.
But they're already fully credentialed with admins and master's degrees.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. And now we'll open a public hearing on the LCAP. Let's see. So we are entertaining public input on the LCAP.
And this is what I call our final draft of LCAP, because we take this and we have to submit it to the county. And the county goes through it and they determines, does it match the criteria that they were asking for. I want to highlight a couple things. And by the way, this is about 80 pages of stuff. And so I want to highlight some things that I think are really important. What you'll see in the LCAP is a baseline data from 16-17, and you'll see this year 17-18 data, which is basically telling you that's where we started, this is what we've done this year, this is where we hope to be. That's the second half of every goal, is the expected outcomes over time. And so this document really starts with three very simple goals. One of the first goal is students will be prepared for college and or career ready. And so some of the things you'll see is that our A to G rate is up. Probably the most astounding statistic is our CTE graduates who have vocationally endorsed went from 0 to 38. Well, that wasn't just an anomaly, is that moving to a trimester schedule where they have opportunities to take the classes, putting CalPads in place, counselors focusing on, gee, Alex, if you took this one more class, you would be vocationally endorsed. Plus, Sanhedrin becoming an alternative ed site that requires vocational endorsement too to graduate. So those things have really spiked that number, and as a district, that's something we need to be really proud of. We have really good vocational programs for our students. I mean, I'd love to add a couple more, but, you know, adding and money are the problem there. But the vocational programs we have are good and strong, and there's lots of enrollment for them next year. Percentage of students going on to post-secondary is up. Goal 2, students will be provided academic support in language, mathematics, and technology. In there, there's data about, most of it is to be determined because we don't have our scores back yet. If you look at goal 3, students and families will be supported and encouraged to advocate healthy life choices. In there, it talks about attendance and those kind of things. This is a long document, and so what I'm trying to do is paraphrase some of it. And what I'm going to give you is some of the good news. Then I'm going to give you some of the things we need to focus on. Good news, suspension rates down. A to G is up. CTE endorsements are way higher. Graduation rate is higher. CTE pathways were added to the high school. We were able to add 2 pathways to the high school this year that we haven't had before. Technology is in place, 7 through 12. And all the indicators and other things are trending in the right direction. They're not high enough, but they're trending in the right direction. So what are the things we need to work on? One of the things we need to work on is obviously language arts and math assessment scores. We want them to go up. That's directly tied to one of my areas of concern for next year is chronic absenteeism. If we're not going to have SARB or something like that, we as a district have to come up with a plan. There is almost a 1-to-1 correlation between poor attendance and poor performance. And we have to figure out a methodology to make that better. That is a critical focus area for us. Another area of focus is is to look at the structure and process of LCAP. I've been living with the document I kind of inherited. Now, after 2 years here, I want to take a look at it about how we do it, who's involved with doing it, what's it look like, what's our philosophy of what we want to do with this document. My other focus area is EL services. As a district, we need to kind of figure that out. We need to have a point person and we need to have a process in place. I feel like that's still something we need to get a better handle on. And I think most of that comes between separations of buildings and bringing the communication between buildings together better. But it also has to do with testing. They've now changed to a new test, so the results will look slightly different. But I think we can do a better job there. And my last focus area is facility improvement and upgrade. It's not hard to walk around and look at the facility and go, gee, I wish they ought to fix this. This would be a lot nicer. So that's an area of concern. I also have kind of a encapsulated how this money is spent. Remember that LCAP is not a gift. It's not a hey, you got fund money. This is really just part of our general fund. It's a piece of general fund, just like title money is part of our general fund. And the LCAP is a document that explains how you pay for that, how you use those funds, and what goals are you doing, and what have you done to accomplish those goals. But if you look at our LCAP spending, 85% of what we do in LCAP is tied to salaries and people and personnel. It's paraprofessionals, it's ELD services, it's all kinds of areas like that. It's phys ed, it's CTE teachers. That's where we spend the bulk of our money. The one place in our budget where we do have some facility money, this is the one place where you find it. There is a $200,000 line item in here for facility maintaining and upgrading. I could spend 10 times more than that in a month and still not get us where do we need to be. But it is one of the few places where we have that. There's $400,000 basically in non-people attached money in LCAP. Well, 200 of that is already going to facilities. So where's the rest of it go? It's things like Avid, Odyssey-ware, one-to-one computing, moving 7th grade to one-to-one computing. It's GATE, Acadeca, Odyssey of the Mind. Those are things where we spend some LCAP money. We have a $28,000 placeholder in there that we put into athletics by not charging admission. Those are all things that we do in there, but it is a very small piece of LCAP. It is less than 7% of LCAP is what I call expenditures on non-personnel or facility things. So that's why I want to take a look at LCAP. It's very tied into people and personnel. Is that the right thing to do with it? But as the admins have heard from me 100 times, if it's not in here, it's going to be represented somewhere else in the budget. You know, good idea, what are we going to not do to do it? And so I'm not saying that any of these expenses are things we shouldn't be doing. My question is, do we reference them well in LCAP? Can we document what we need to document to justify the expense? If not, we should look at it and make the decision about are we going to do it, but something else would need to take its place. We're certainly not leaving LCAP money on the table. We're going to spend more than what they give us. And so that's my thing with LCAP. It is a giant document, and we're looking at it for a first time with 80 pages. I'm going to send it to the county. The county's going to review it, and generally speaking, they'll red pen me up a little bit. and we'll send it back. The numbers and mechanics all are in there. Those are solid. Those come from Nikki, and they're really not disputed by the county because it's out of our books and our budget. So usually what they look at is, does the goal match the data? Is the data saying what it's supposed to say? So it's a very long, tedious document. But what I want you to know is that I think we've documented some good progress. So.
Okay. Is there any public comment?
Yeah, I agree with the process that I think that we talked about it last month too, is that it seems like this is such an important part and an opportunity for the community to get involved in the development of what we're doing with this money. And so maybe we should set up just a series of meetings where different stakeholders can get, their chance to provide their input into this document and create something, see if it's still working and relevant to what we're doing now. Because I've heard from different stakeholders that they have, interest of LCAP money, and if we wait until the very end, then there's really no chance to manipulate the document to make it work for different people. So it'd be nice to set up that process, going into the year.
And that's kind of my plan, because I really wanted to just live with what it said for a while. Because walking in brand new, I didn't know who was what programs work, what don't, how are we going to change this, set it up. But I think I have a pretty good handle on that now. And I think we know what we need to get better at. We know that LCAP is tied up into personnel. And is that the right thing to do with it? It's going to get spent somehow. And if something comes out, it's probably going into the other general fund. But what goes in there, honestly, I'd like to streamline it so it would be a lot easier, because it's super complicated and it requires a ton of time from everybody. So, yeah, that's one of the things, and I don't limit it really just to LCAP, because meeting with parents and other people, there's certain things that aren't in LCAP, but we still need to do. So.
Any other public comment on LCAP? We'll close the public hearing and open the public hearing for the 18-19 budget.
And I have budget materials here if anybody is interested.
And I want to say this because Nikki won't say it. What I want you to know is that there are three major issues. We have really struggled to get to the budget to this point. We had our accounts payable person take a different position, so we went a month without accounts payable last month. So she was doing accounts payable and trying to get budget done. On top of that, through their own fault, the business managers chose to buy a new piece of software called Escape. Don't ask me why you call financial software Escape, but they do. So everything that's happened has been a duplication of services in our old system, converting to a new system. Accounts payable, she's been doing accounts payable for a month. Linda's been super helpful working, but I just want to say that to attest the fact that when I show up on Saturdays and Sundays for the last month, Nikki's been there too. And it's really difficult to get this done, but again, it's a learning process. This is kind of her first trip through with us to get to that point, but in the meantime, we changed softwares and had some personnel issues, so I appreciate that we got to this point. Because she and I always have talks like about 5:30 at night. 5:30 to 6:30 is usually when we communicate. She's been a little frazzled a few times at 6 o'clock, but so go ahead.
Shackled to your office chair.
A little bit. Okay, so what I passed out two things. The packet is, the bulk of it here. And then there's also an attachment, which is the Oh, and I just realized that the heading on this says 17-18, and it should say 18-19, but the budget adoption reserve page. But we're gonna tackle the packet first. The first page here is a comparison of our 17-18 estimated actuals to our 18-19 anticipated budget. And one of the big things that I would point out, I think most of us want to see, like, what is our change in fund balance, and that's a key piece of our budget. And when you look at the unrestricted side, you can see we have a pretty dramatic change between estimated actuals and adoption. But I want to point out that's the 648,917 for 17-18, and then 29,000 in 18-19. One of the things I think somewhat obscures the reality of our change in fund balance is that the governor currently is proposing a $344 per ADA one-time revenue for mandated cost reimbursement to pay down some of the mandated cost backlog that we have. And that is $480,000. So we have a one-time revenue in our 18-19 budget of $480,000. So I think really when you look at our ongoing expenditures and our ongoing revenues, we're closer to about $500,000 of deficit spending, but we have that one-time funds coming in. If you flip to page 7, this is the
Couldn't see the pages are numbered this year.
We try, it's always the last minute endeavor. So 18-19 is the first column here, and then the 2 out years of our multi-year projection. So if you go down about 2/3 of the way, the change in fund balance, you can see that in the 2 out years, we go back to that, $500,000 point of deficit spending. I would say this is still an improvement over where we previously have been, and I would put that to 2 major reasons, which would be we've gone up a funding band at Sherwood School. I'm very pleased about that. I think that our investment in the expansion of that program has paid off not just educationally, but also fiscally for us. And then we also are seeing that the governor is currently proposing for 18-19 full implementation of the LCFF. So that's a little, he's been a little more aggressive about getting to his target than he previously had been. So I think that puts us in a little bit better position than we previously were. But I think we know that we have been building programs and, investing in some things, but we will at a certain point have to start talking about aligning that budget, because it's not sustainable to deficit spend at that level forever.
I think that there's 2 reasons why we had an improvement of our financial condition. First one is governor, and the second one is Brown. Basically, the Governor Brown's 8 years as governor has just basically been a godsend to where we were 5 years ago when I came back on the board. I mean, I couldn't believe what was going on, and it's just, the state has really done everything that it can to step up.
Absolutely. I think that the governor, especially in this last part of his term, has made a huge goal. This was his creation, the LCFF. He really wanted to see it through and have it accomplished before he left office. And so I wasn't really surprised when he proposed full implementation, and I am glad for that. I do hope that the state continues to discuss adequate school funding, because I think there's still progress that needs to be made statewide. But agreed, if you look at where we started 5-6 years ago to where we are now, it's a very dramatic change in schools across California.
It's a move in the right direction, but just the statistics from, I want to say it was late last year, California's still ranked 41st
Exactly.
Yeah,
for school
Yeah.
funding.
we still have a long way to go. I
And
personally.
I read somewhere that we've even fallen further back,
Yep,
45th.
45th or 46th now.
yep.
So I would argue that our priorities still are not straight in what's arguably the most
funding.
wealthy state in the union. This does not make sense.
LCFF, is it 2009? It gets us to the level of 2009 funding?
7, 8, I
Or
Yeah.
7, 8?
believe. Yeah.
Yes.
So when they say fully funded LCF, well, that got you back to 2007 and 8 level.
And that's 10 years ago, 10 years of inflation beyond that. So
And that's not like individual to every single district. Obviously, every district has, started at a different place, so getting to the full implementation, that might look a little different for districts, but statewide, they have gotten back to the 07-08 educational spending. So,
Nikki, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Quick question, the reserves.
mhm.
Now, 3% is allowed now, is the
So-
lowest, and what is, did they put a max on that?
So 3% is the minimum.
Right,
And then there is legislation that had happened several years ago related to a reserve cap. And so for that, multiple factors would have to be hit at the state level related to, they use various formulas when they do the Prop 90 funding for schools, so it depends on which one they end up using in a given year, and some other factors, including whether the governor deposits anything into the rainy day fund. There's a whole bunch of things that have to happen before the reserve cap is actually in place, and we've yet to see that happen. If the reserve cap were to be in place, the language says that that is double the state minimum. So for this district, that would be 6%. But there is a tremendous amount of concern statewide about that, and a lot of groups who are working to change that, because that would be less than 1 month of operational expenditures for a district.
and that's exactly why I brought up the point, because when we went through those rough times, the schools that kept their head above water were those that had a reserve
Yes.
that helped them get through it.
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking at 3%, it looks like we go to less of that, I mean, the projection, but I'm sure things will change, but.
So for us, when you're looking at the fund balance here, there's several pieces that we're seeing. And so we are meeting our 6% is what I show for the reserve for economic uncertainty. And we are meeting that in every one of our budget years, and with a little bit of over that as well. So I think that, we're not yet in a position to be overly alarmed. I will personally say that, there are recommendations from various fiscal organizations that 17% is what they recommend, because that's about 2 months worth of operating. And so to me, 6 feels low.
It is.
Yeah.
The two things that I look at for what the fund balance does for you when you enter fiscal crisis, or more like economic situations that we face, like the recession, is that if things like the mid-year trigger cuts that had happened to us a decade ago come into place, it gives you breathing room just program-wise, that you don't have to immediately cut things. You can maybe finish out a school year or an extra year before you have to make reductions. And then the other thing that it does is helps us to have cash flows, because one of the other strategies that the state used to get themselves through the recession was to defer cash payments to districts. And so that really put a lot of districts in a bad position to have to borrow, which costs them more money. And so when you have fund balance, that does help buffer some of your cash flows and help you get through payroll and paying utilities and whatnot. So, to me, those are the two, biggest aspects of maintaining a healthy fund balance. And so then the other pieces that we show in our fund balance, we do have some amounts that are assigned. That's lottery. We have a little bit of the MA reimbursement funds that have come through. And so I just show those amounts so that we can kind of maintain the progress of that for next time. And then the other piece is when we were talking about LCAP and not leaving money on the table, I do just want to clarify that I don't necessarily budget out every single dollar at the beginning of a year for LCAP, because the truth is, we don't know until the end of the year how much that actually is for that year. And so if you overshoot your target, now you're in a bad position. And so I do leave a little bit of buffer there, but it is always earmarked and maintained, and we show that carryover for future year use. So it's just kind of a rolling, you know, we don't, it's not stacking up on us, but we leave ourselves a little breathing room so that we're not overdoing it in any given year. And then we do maintain a small revolving fund that's non-spendable cash listed there. And then, of course, the REU, that's the reserve for economic uncertainty. So I think that's kind of the main points about our change in fund balance and our ending fund balance. We have had a couple of other changes that, you know, are just funding things. We've had some programs over the last couple of years that are coming to an end. We had the Educator Effectiveness Fund, that was a 3-year program that has come to an end. The CTE Incentive Grant, we've had revenue coming in for several years on that, and going into next year there will be no more revenue, although we have one more program year, we have some carryover, and that's for some CTE program stuff that's going to happen at the high school. ROP, so that we have, the county has agreed, I think, to fund a couple of more years where they will maintain that position on their payroll. We had thought that we would have to pick that up, and so we don't have to pull that position into our budget, but what it does is it offsets basically any revenue they would have given us. So I think we've got like 10,000, that's the difference, not very much. And so, yeah, I think those are the main highlights. Last year in 17-18, we did have a couple, we had done the purchase of the vans. We had done the purchase of the CTE ag truck. The vans were purchased outright on the books. The CTE truck, although we purchased it outright, accounting-wise was a booking expense over time because we're allowed to use some of our CTE funding for that each year.
Well, the good and the bad news is this. We're financially okay. We're trying to use this year and next year to get ourselves in a good position to be stable. But at the same time, we have to realize we're really hoping that we get the grant for a bus, because pulling $160,000 out of a budget is a really tough number, and we need a bus. But to get that bus, we're hoping that we get in on the grant. Other districts around us have. We've applied again. I think we'll be one of the people who get funded. I think we have a good shot at that. That will save us a significant amount of money.
Although I would say we probably have need for more than one bus,
Yeah.
So we still need
I don't want to
to
get too greedy.
be aware.
We just got rid of Scooby-Doo's van.
Yeah. And actually, I do want to point out, so when you look at the assigned funds, ending fund balance, that $1,066,607, that I did include the $480,000, that was the one-time mandated cost. So I kind of set that aside there. I think it's one-time funds, and we have some pretty serious needs for things like vehicle replacement and that kind of stuff. So at a certain point, we may want to discuss.
That $480,000 is in that?
It is, yeah, it's set aside in the assigned component of fund balance. So in each of the years that is shown, so that when you look at that unassigned balance, that's sort of already accounted for.
And this is just to look at it today. We don't really do anything until next week. So you have it. Certainly look it over. If you have questions, really ask Nikki. Don't ask Mark.
And on that point, I've got to say that this is the first time we've received a budget that I can recall in advance of the meeting where we adopt the budget. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I will say one major piece that is not present here yet is the criteria and standards. I don't think that's anyone's favorite part to read anyways, but I am still trying to wrap that piece up and I'm trying to send that out to you guys before the weekend. So you'll still have it in advance of adoption. And then the other thing I did want to point out really quick, that is a new addition to our budget this year, will be Fund 11, Form 11, which is our adult school. So that's a new piece.
Thank you, I also appreciate that the one-time funding, you're applying to one-time costs. Because I've seen districts make the mistake, get one-time funding, apply it to something that eats, and then they can't
Right,
sustain
and
it.
at this point, I would say we haven't made any firm decisions about that use, but, you know, I really think it's best to see it separately so that we don't make the mistake of kind of rolling that in and thinking we're in a better position than we are.
Good for you.
I don't think, we're probably not even gonna have that discussion until we hit July. I mean, we really wanna find out where do we truly end up at the end of the month. And then we'll talk about what are we gonna do, what can we do, those kind of things.
The last meeting, you talked about our insurance company basically telling us that we had some issues with our parking, our paving and so forth. What happens if we don't deal with those?
Well, they'll probably jack our rate up, would be my guess. But the 480 we're talking about, that would just about be the right dollar figure to do all the paving they're requesting. That's my hesitancy to not do that, though. To go, oh, we got a fix for this. Because, you know, I have to wrap my head around a parking lot based on kids and teachers and staff. That's a hard choice to make. So I'm hoping that they give us a little leniency. I'm also hoping that one of my goals for next year is a complete facility study. We're gonna prioritize what we wanna fix, you know? And I'll just use the B word, at some point, the district's gotta look at bonding. They have to. I mean, everything that you passed a bond for 43 million and only spent 14. Well, that was 9 years ago. Everything you wanted to do is now 9 years older with worse problems than you had before. And so we're limping along and, you know, we duct tape, super glue, do whatever we gotta do to keep stuff going. But at some point, that's not a good investment. And so I think the parking lot fits into that category. That's a massive investment that you can't just pull that out of general fund. I mean, we'll devastate our year end if we do that.
Okay. Any public comment on the budget? Close the public hearing. And moving on, we have first reads for H through P. We'll recognize those first reads. Any discussion on any of those policies?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd just like to say, when we passed that resolution in the fall about safe schools, and then when you look at what we're doing, what we have to do, according to state law, the AB 699 with the board policy 0410, the non-discrimination in district program, it seems like my reading of it is that what the board did proactively in the fall is exactly what you need to be doing on this.
But it's not required by law.
Right. And so I think we're a few steps ahead of the game.
I noticed that one of the things it requires is the superintendent to advise the board if there's any requests for information by the federales. So I'd be anxious to hear about that if that occurs.
It does not happen today.
Anyway, I just think you guys did the right thing then, and it's good for the district.
It was the right thing.
Nice figure.
Yeah.
At the urging of some concerned citizens in the room.
Any public comments on items not on the agenda?
you about to say something? No?
And items for a future agenda. I believe we've got your eval on the next agenda.
Good.
That's for next week?
Yeah.
And there's no meeting in July?
Correct.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate to talk about a potential resource officer on that budget meeting, or on that meeting?
We can. I'm getting data for you about cost and all that stuff.
Okay, can you add that?
And my whole article I put in the paper was about school safety.
Right, read it? Very, very good, appreciate it. Anybody else got anything for the agenda for next week? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
By the way,
I need several
it's not
signatures.
been officially done at a city council meeting.